Hello from London. Here at TRT World, we bring you all-day coverage of what's become an ongoing Palestinian genocide. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's alleged campaign to, quote, finish Hamas in Gaza has turned into a tragedy of catastrophic proportions. Israel has consistently violated international law. It's blocked the passage of aid, including food, water and medicine, and it has struck healthcare facilities and it's targeted journalists. 2 years on, Israel's assault on Gaza has resulted in almost 70,000 killings, mass displacement and dwindling hopes now for a two-state solution. Well, let's take you straight to Gaza now, and we'll go to Abdul Wahab Hamad in Deir al-Bala. Abdul Wahab, we've just seen incredible images of rubble across Gaza. How would you describe what is left of your Gaza 2 years on?
More than 90% of homes have been completely damaged or partially destroyed, Maria, with more than 70% of the public road networks damaged, according to the UNOSAT. Gaza today, Maria, is one of the largest tent refugee camp, but this time in an urban city full of destroyed homes, Maria. The Israeli military, since the beginning of this genocide on October the 7th, have not only destroyed the public infrastructure, they have targeted very deep in the ground. They destroyed the geotechnic foundation of Gaza, something that tells only one thing: Gaza might be unlivable. The Israeli military have systematically not only targeted home, but the very basic infrastructure. Now, Deir al-Bala, Maria, here in the center of Gaza, is a giant tent refugee camp. Homes, the very few homes here is surrounded by a lot of tent refugee camps, even pavements of the streets, lines and lines of tent refugee camps. And most importantly, Maria, the people of Gaza, more than 200 of them, 200,000 of them, are either killed by the Israeli military, injured, or lost. Gaza is not Gaza anymore. Israel have unmade Gaza, Maria, and more specifically the people of Gaza. 200,000 have been either killed, injured or lost. A lot of people here in Gaza are still searching for their loved ones. Thousands and thousands, Maria, of the people of Gaza are still under the rubble. Families here have been dreaming for months and months, searching for their loved ones, either those detained by the Israeli military, where dozens of thousands have been taken have been detained by the Israeli military or are still under the rubble, Maria, because of the lack of equipments for the civil defense forces. Gaza today is a global reckoning for the consequences of war. It's ugly and it shakes the very basic foundation of human values, Maria. We can see the exhaustion in the people's faces, but they still, Maria, they still say that we are Palestinians. They still love here, they still want to be here, they want this genocide to end.
Abdul Wahab, I'm just seeing an ambulance that has just pulled up behind you as you were speaking, and it is very true to say that Israel is not just killing with its bombs, it is also killing Palestinians with its starvation, and famine was declared in Gaza. And a line that you often say that really touches me, and I'm sure so many of our viewers, is that Palestinians are starving and they're being watched as they starve.
Yes, Maria, they're being watched to starve, and this is what breaks them from inside, because Palestinians have lost everything, Maria, their homes, their hospitals, their schools, and what is left is actually dignity. And Israel have actually getting on the last nerve of Palestinian, especially in their dignity, Maria. Every Israeli doing here on the ground is stripping Palestinians of their dignity. This what remains for them, and that's why they want this ugly genocide to end in the strip. We continue to speak with people here on the ground. What they have is anger, frustration, utter humiliation. We haven't seen something like this. We were not expecting this much of agony. Israel here, Maria, have created a very harsh reality, especially in the context of the humanitarian sector, Maria. Humanitarian organizations here are not allowed to function. Israel have created this much of obstructions of humanitarian corridors. It does not only kill Palestinians by bombing them, but also by starving them. Since the United Nations confirmed famine in Gaza, Maria, a lot of children have died of malnutrition, acute malnutrition. Almost 1 million Palestinians have reached emergency phase 4 of the IBC, the same body that confirmed famine here in Gaza with the United Nations, alongside with the UN. They say that the entire population here have been projected to face catastrophic food insecurity. What it breaks them from inside is their children. A lot of Palestinian families, they say that our children asks us, especially at night, that we want to eat, but there is no food. Israel, Maria, every Israeli doing here on the ground, especially in terms of food, it's a weapon of war, Maria. Israel have used it as a weapon of war. It's against international law. Israel was ordered by the ICJ to allow the entry of humanitarian supplies unhindered, unrestricted. But that even is not part of Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. They want to get back to the humanitarian protocol, Maria, signed between Israel and Hamas in the second ceasefire agreement. People here said we don't deserve this. We deserve better future. We want to feel what does a statehood means. And this what it breaks them from inside, Maria. Everyone here is going crazy, especially with those latest Israeli strikes, diabolical, nefarious, call it whatever you want to call it, but it breaks them from inside. Not only the bombing, but it kills them silently. And all of those people, they want an end to this genocide. Enough is enough. The world has let this happening. It continues, and as it continues, Maria, Israel gets more ravenous for killing.
Abdul Wahab, thank you so much for bringing us that very important information there live from Gaza. Abdul Wahab Hamad from Deir al-Balah. All right, let's just show you these live images from Istanbul. And we're seeing pictures from Istanbul airport right now, where Turkish activists who joined the global Sumut flotilla have just now returned to Turkey after being held up there in Israel. And 14 Turkish citizens who were on board vessels were seized by Israel and safely crossed into Jordan by land before boarding a flight from Amman back to Turkey. Well, our Kubra Akoç is outside the airport where the activist plane has just landed. Kubra, just talk us through how important and symbolic this moment is.
Well, very symbolic indeed. An excited crowd gathered here to welcome them, and it's symbolic for many in Turkey, here in Istanbul, of course, but also when it comes to symbolism, it's symbolic for many all around the world, because these people are the remaining activists, remaining Turkish activists in Israel following their interception in the international waters by the Israeli forces. They didn't come back on Saturday. Most of the Turkish activists returned to Turkey on Saturday, but these people, 14 remaining activists, they refused to sign the deportation papers, so they had to wait in an Israeli prison so that other paperwork and procedures can be conducted. And at the end of the day, their situation are the deportees, of course, but they had to wait because they refused to sign the deportation papers. And finally, they have landed in Istanbul. An excited crowd, their loved ones, their families, their friends, and some of their supporters, of course, have gathered here to welcome them, to show solidarity with them, to congratulate them, and of course to reunite with them. Why they refused to sign the deportation papers, why we are seeing them arriving only now? Because they thought signing the deportation papers would legitimize them trying to enter Israel illegally. But they claim, they argue that they never tried to enter Israel illegally, so they cannot be considered as deportees. Their claim is they wanted to set foot on the shores of Gaza, so they refused to sign that paper. But here we are at the end of the day. Turkish government's efforts made them come back home, and their loved ones are excited and they're waiting to welcome them.
Kubra, for now, thank you so much. Kubra Akoç, live there from Istanbul. Well, we also have our other colleague, İlyas Avcı, at Istanbul airport, and he's been actually traveling with the Turkish activists that were on the flotilla, and just live on your screens right now, those Turkish activists that were on the flotilla have arrived in Istanbul. İlyas, talk to us about what they told you as they returned back to Istanbul, how they were treated, their experience of being on the flotilla, everything that this important experience on that flotilla has meant.
Exactly, Maria. Let's actually hear it from them in a bit. These are the 14 Turkish national activists that were brought to Turkey, and we just got out of the plane, and they're here giving statements to the press, to the media, and as Kubra just told us, these 14 fleet members actually refused to sign the deportation paper. So the reason why they did it is that they say that Israel detained them illegally in the international waters, and that's why they did not sign that deportation paper. And now we're seeing them without signing that paper, dragging their feet, and on signing that paper, and calling themselves actually victorious after their activism. And now actually let's come on and speak to some of them. We have Muhammed Fatih Sinan over here. He is one of those fleet members. Fatih, how do you feel right now?
I feel very well. It's very honor to be in being in Smooth Flotilla, and it's also very honor to be for me and being in jail in occupation land in Palestine. And also it's very honor to be in my country. In here, we were trying to break the siege. We were trying to open human corridor, but they cut it our way, and they took us to prison. But we will never stop. We will continue. There is another flotilla, Freedom Flotilla. At this moment, they are sailing in the White Sea, and all the world has to focus on it, and we should protect them. The world couldn't protect the Sumud flotilla, but they must protect the second Freedom Flotilla. They have to protect them because Gaza need us. Gaza need food. Babies need food. Mother need food.
Exactly.
And we should be in Gaza as soon as possible. And the end of Israel will come in. It's very soon. So thank you for all people. Thank you for all countries who is supporting Gaza.
Let's actually talk to another member. There's a familiar face to us over here. That we have Sena, who is a TRT World colleague for us. Sena, let's have you on air.
Okay. So, you want to?
Can we have you on air?
Yeah. If you want, we can speak.
We're on air. Let's ask you a question and then. Sena, how do you feel? The camera is over there.
Hello, how are you feeling? Which one? Which camera? Hello.
To the left.
Come. Hello. I'm Sana from TRT World. Come.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Sana from TRT World and Ilyas from.
Yeah, TRT World as well.
So
Sena,
my colleague Ilyas asked me how I am feeling. I'm feeling happy. Maybe it was because of I'm not anymore in the. Canlı yayın mı?
All right, just for our audience, these are the Turkish activists that have returned from the flotilla, and right now my colleague Ilyas Avcı is with one of our colleagues that was part of the flotilla. Just a bit of information about what's happening on our screens right now. And Ilyas, if you could just ask our colleague what her experience was like on the flotilla, and also how she feels she was treated by Israeli forces.
Here.
Now.
How were you treated? Yes, we're on air. How were you treated in the Israeli prison?
We were in the Negev prison. Negev prison is the most close prison to Gaza. So it was before us. It was for the Palestinian prisoner. Emin misin? Are you sure that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I guess the exhaustion really kicks in, and as you can see, all the members are very exhausted. They are tired. The journey to here actually took about 3 weeks, including the training and everything, and also a 5-day or 6 days of detention in the Israeli prison. So we have to leave them some time for about 10 minutes after this long flight as well, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Ilyas Avcı. They're travelling there with the activists from Turkey who were on the global Sumud flotilla. Let's continue. And since the start of Israel's war on Gaza, troops have regularly struck hospitals. They've also blocked medical aid from actually entering the Gaza Strip. And they've forced doctors to perform operations without anaesthetic. Now, the collapsing healthcare system is overwhelmed with casualties from indiscriminate Israeli bombardment. And that bombardment by Israel, they've also forced we've had forced displacement orders that have made many Palestinians to flee their homes multiple times. Some have even been displaced up to 10 times or more. TRT World's Ashraf Shannon reports on the plight of Palestinians over the past 2 years.
Since the start of Israel's war on Gaza, there has been a lack of water, electricity, food, and fuel. Families are fleeing from the northern Gaza Strip after a forced evacuation of more than 1 million people. Hospitals are overwhelmed, operating at over 200% capacity, with severe shortages of medical supplies, oxygen, and essential medicines. Many patients wait hours, sometimes days, for treatment, while displaced families struggle for shelter and basic necessities.
As you can see, Al-Aqsa Hospital is now completely full with patients and wounded. We have been forced to place them in the hospital courtyards, both inside and outside, because there are no available beds due to the severe overcrowding. There must be immediate intervention from international community and the humanitarian organizations to provide protection for medical staff and hospitals in the Gaza Strip.
Israel's assault on Gaza and the blockade of aid makes access to medical supplies a daily struggle. Ala, a 9-year-old boy who was critically injured in an Israeli airstrike, still has shrapnel embedded in his body.
At first, they took him to the Al-Shifa hospital, but there were almost no resources, no doctors, no beds to place him on. So they transferred him to Al-Aqsa hospital. Right now, his right eye has almost lost vision, and there are still 3 pieces of shrapnel in his left eye. His right leg doesn't move at all.
Families escaping the ground assault struggle to find shelter. According to the UN, over 60% of displaced families in Gaza are living without adequate shelter or access to clean water.
We were in Gaza, but after the displacement and bombing, we fled to the south. Now we are living on the street. For 2 days, we've had no tent, no shelter. I was displaced with my children because of the airstrikes, and we can't even find drinking water. My husband and children are unemployed, and we have nothing.
Gaza's electricity and water networks have been devastated by Israel's war.
2 years on, Gazans continue to suffer because of the war. The infrastructure has been destroyed, and families continue to suffer from constant displacement. Ashraf Shanan, TRT World, Gaza.
Well, let's go back to our story about the Turkish activists that were on the global Sumud flotilla that have just arrived in Istanbul. And my colleague Kubra Akoç is is waiting outside the airport where the activist plane just landed. Kubra, what have they been telling you, and what is the atmosphere like there among the activists and among the family members? We can see there one of our colleagues hugging there, presumably family members. Just to describe the scene there right now.
Well, exactly. There are very mixed emotions here. These people behind me, they gathered here with Turkish and Palestinian flags to welcome their loved ones, their family members, 14 remaining Turkish activists who are coming back home after being 5-6 days in Israel, after their boats were intercepted by the Israeli forces in international waters. There is really this mixed feeling of reunification with their loved ones. There is pride, but also they say that they were scared. They were scared that they might lose their loved ones. This was a long journey. Global Sumud flotilla set sail at the beginning of September. So it was a long journey. They set sail from Spain. Some people joined from Tunisia, and of course they had a mission. And it was for many a very dangerous mission because they knew that they would be facing Israeli soldiers, Israeli forces in the international waters, especially close to the Gaza's territorial waters. So for many family members, it was a very worrying journey, but also they were there to support their loved ones, support their bravery, support them being outspoken about what's happening in Gaza, and them being outspoken about criticizing Israeli atrocities across the besieged strip. We are talking about activists, almost 500 activists actually. Right now we are talking about only 14 Turkish ones, but Global Sumud Flotilla mission is much more comprehensive, of course. We are talking about these people putting their lives on risk so that they can attract more attention, they can attract more media attention, they can attract more attention from politicians to what's happening in Gaza. We already know that there is a process to seal a deal right now, but every single effort from these people, of course, contributed to exert more pressure on Israeli government. And Turkish activists, they were among the ones who were leading this mission with 50 participants. Of course, at the core, they were at the core of this mission. 36 of them came home on Saturday through the Turkish government's initiatives, and remaining ones, 14 of them, just landed in Istanbul, and their family members are very excited to see them. Some of them are crying, some of them are crying out of happiness, some of them are crying out of anxiety, out of stress, but in like momentarily they would be reuniting with their loved ones, and we will be here following those moments very closely, and we will be bringing you the latest.
Kubra, as you mentioned, of course, there were around 500 activists from around 40 countries and 50 boats that made up that global Sumud flotilla. And, you know, we've followed this story very closely live on air. Do you know how the activists were treated once they got onto what was taken by Israeli soldiers and the Israeli Navy?
Well, of course, we have the first witness accounts, we have the first-person stories. Our colleagues, Ilyas, was just talking to us about their treatments. And also, we were here as TRT World, we were here again to welcome, to cover the welcoming of the 36 Turkish activists and also rest of the international activists, because we know that more than 100 people landed in Istanbul on Saturday from United States, from UK, from Malaysia. Other activists also landed here in Istanbul through Turkish government's initiatives. And what they told us, what they told media, is that they were treated really, really badly. They're saying, of course, that doesn't come as a surprise, given how Palestinian civilians are being treated under the Israeli occupation. So these activists being in an Israeli prison, they say, doesn't come as a surprise that they got a very bad treatment, like they weren't given any drinking water. Some of the activists actually told media that they were exposed to, they were forced to drink toilet water, quite remarkably. And of course, they said they were deprived of food. Basically, they were deprived of their basic rights. These are the testimonies that we got from the activists. Of course, we did not document them. But again, these are the testimonies that we got from the activists, not only from the Turkish activists, but also from the international activists. One of the activists actually talked to the media about how Greta Thunberg, the climate activist,
if I may interrupt, we're just going to hear now from one of the activists. Do stay where you are, we'll come back to you. Let's just listen in.
Give up. And the Gazans can free everyone. You see their tents, and the tents are very clean. And no matter how much they try to destroy, the Gazans will build once again. If the Gaza is destroyed 100 times, they will be built 101 times. I'm a journalist myself, and the journalists of Gaza, they are the honors of all of the profession, and they risk their lives. And they are not treated as equals to the European journalists, but we have learned the real journalism from the journalists of Gaza.
All right, we just heard there from one of the activists that was on the global Sumud flotilla that has just returned to Istanbul. And Kubra, as she was speaking, she was talking about being a journalist and the fact that Israel has killed so many journalists. And as she was speaking, it struck me the motivation for these activists to go on the global Sumud flotilla and the risks they take. What have they told you about the motivation that drives them?
Of course, Maria, they put humanitarianism at the forefront of their mission. They say they're doing this not for any political reasons, not for any legal reasons. They're doing this out of humanitarianism, because what's happening in Gaza is violation of basic human rights, they say. These people are mostly human rights activists. So, of course, they are criticizing Israel violating international law by imposing naval, air, and sea, of course, sea, air, and land blockade over the Gaza Strip. But also, their main point is how they were treated. Of course, Palestinian civilians, we know about their treatment. It was documented multiple times. It is currently being documented by the journalists on the ground, including our own TRT World team in Gaza. So these people, their main motivation was to speak up against the Israeli government and to speak up against the atrocities committed by the Israeli government, particularly the treatment of women and children. We know that children are dying of malnutrition in Gaza, and these people are furious about that. We know that women are being treated badly in Gaza, and these people are against that. So they're saying they're defiant, although they had a very long journey, although they were treated really badly. They're saying they're not the story, although they're on the headlines right now. They're saying they shouldn't be on the headlines as in that they are the subject of the story, but rather they are there as a tool to direct more attention to what's happening in Gaza. And right now behind me, Maria, you can still see an excited crowd with Palestinian and Turkish flags. They're sometimes singing, they're sometimes chanting all peaceful slogans. They're sometimes chanting in support of the Palestinian civilians. They're supporting the resistance, and they're trying to send a big message to the Palestinian civilians living in Gaza that they're not alone, because they also know that there is a huge media attention right now, because we know that global Smooth Flotilla has attracted worldwide media attention and also attention from societies across the globe.
And just nationally, how was this being watched, Kubra? Because this is not the first time that Turkish activists have been on a flotilla, and the world and Turkey remembers the Mavi Marmara. What was the mood nationally and also for these family members, knowing the risk that the activists were taking, and of course for such an important humanitarian cause?
Well, Maria, you and I both know that the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian cause is very significant for Turkish people. And it, like, regardless of their political views, regardless of their backgrounds, Turkish people unite when it comes to showing solidarity with Palestinians. Turkish people unite when it comes to speaking up against the Israeli atrocities across the besieged Gaza Strip. I myself, as a journalist, I do not even remember how many times I covered a protest, a demonstration like this one behind me here in Istanbul since October 7 in support of the Palestinians who are being badly treated, who were killed by the Israeli forces in the occupied Gaza Strip. So Turkish people always are very sensitive about this issue. They're very supportive about this issue, and they're also very responsive about this issue. We are talking about protests where more than tens of thousands of people are being present, and it's only just not once, it's not twice. Sometimes it's every weekend, on every Saturday in Istanbul, in Turkish capital Ankara, across Turkey, in other streets. It's very common thing. This is a very familiar scene. None of the Turkish people would be surprised seeing a Palestinian flag, seeing a Turkish person waving a Palestinian flag on the street on a random day. An ordinary citizen waving and carrying Palestinian flag is a way of daily life here in Turkey. So this is a very significant moment when it comes to that too, because they're welcoming Turkish activists returning from a very important humanitarian mission, and they believe that these people succeeded in many ways when it comes to maybe in an abstract way breaking this blockade in the minds of many people, because this has been believed as a blockade that won't be able to, that is not breakable, let's say. But these people believe that what those Turkish activists, along with other international activists from that global Smooth Flotilla, showed the rest of the world that that blockade actually can be breachable with more support, with more determination, and with more resilience.
Kubra, on that point of whether this succeeded or not, this was a recurring question on that night, as we saw Israel, the Israeli Navy mount the flotilla and attack so many of those ships with water. But what happened on that day is that we saw in so many global cities, including Istanbul and Ankara, spontaneous public demonstrations. Just as I was on air personally, we saw them in Ankara, in Istanbul, in Milan, in London. How important is that with regards to the fact that maybe the aid did not arrive to Gaza, but it did break, let's say, that a blockade in maybe the international understanding of what Israel's war on Gaza means?
Well, exactly. So we know that on Thursday, these boats, these activists were intercepted in the international waters. Some of them, they were intercepted in Gaza's territorial waters. And we all saw those images, how Israeli forces were attacking those people, how these people were, according to them, and I'm going to quote, kidnapped by the Israeli forces. And of course, that scene actually didn't come as a surprise, because Global Smooth Flotilla has been a very public mission. So Israel knew that they were coming, and Israel said multiple times that if they try to come to Gaza's territorial waters, they would be intercepted, because Israel believes that it's their right to intercept anyone who tries to breach their blockade over the Gaza Strip. But again, so this was expected. Everybody was expecting to see that image. But again, that triggered a huge global outcry, even more than ever, I would say. We saw images of sea of people, sea of flags across the globe, from Amsterdam to Istanbul, from London to Paris. People took to the streets to just, yes.
Just very briefly, who were the Turkish activists on board? Just very briefly.
Most of them were philanthropists, some of them were TV personalities, and some of them were just activists. They do not define themselves by any official titles, but they were very well-known, very famous people to Turkish people. So that's why it is creating even more sentiment among the Turkish people.
Kubra, for now, thank you so much. Kubra Koç, live from Istanbul Airport. All right, let's go back to our colleague İlyas Avcı, who's also at Istanbul Airport and who actually travelled with the Turkish activists back to Istanbul. İlyas, just what is the mood right now among the activists? And we see that they appear to be gathering there to speak to the public. What's happening behind you in that room?
Well, Maria, I would say the mood is proud and cheerful. Over here, we can see the families and relatives of the flotilla members and also the press and media, and they were welcomed here like heroes. They were given flowers, and as you can see, it's very hard to even find a place to stand. They're about to give a presser over there, a statement. They don't have a written statement, but all those 14 members of the flotilla are going to voice their own thoughts. That's, of course, if they want to. I've been talking to a lot of them, and what's really striking is that they don't really like to talk about what they've been through, although the treatment that they received in the Israeli prisons, or prison rather, was not very pleasant, of course. They say that of course we suffered, but what we have to talk about is Gaza itself, the Palestinian cause itself. We shouldn't go ahead of the main issue, is what these members of that aid flotilla are constantly saying whenever somebody wants to talk about their side of the experience.
Ilyas, thank you very much indeed. Ilyas Avcı live there from Istanbul airport, covering the return of the Turkish activists that were on the global Sumud flotilla and have returned to Istanbul airport. All right, we continue now with our special coverage of what has become an ongoing ongoing genocide of Palestinians by Israel. And for that, our Gaza correspondent, Ashraf Shannon, is standing by for us with a panel of guests.
Yes, Maria, we have two guests today, Mr. Nabil Khaldi, Gaza resident, and Mr. Mohammed Khattawi from Al-Ata organization. I'm going to begin with you, Nabil. Nabil, you've been through this war and you've been through an Israeli blockade before. How difficult, can you describe to our viewers, how was it your personal experience and what you saw during this war?
Well, today we mark the second anniversary of this genocide, second anniversary of this war. Of course, when we talk about 2 years, we can talk about suffering, 2 years of suffering, 2 years of displacement, 2 years of mass killing, 2 years of mass destruction. We can talk about every single day, every single hour, every single minute, as no minute was passing without bombing homes, bombing innocent people, bombing hospitals, bombing educational institutions, bombing residential areas, bombing health workers. And I want to talk about, for example, displacement, these tragedy stories. Every family has displaced a lot. Some families displaced trouble times. The average of displacement was about 6 times for every family. And when we talk about displacement, let's talk about how can the family, one family living in their home for decades, how can move from this home to a tent with reducing all the furniture, all their equipment in one small bag, taking their bag in haste in several minutes, and to move directly before the orders of displacement.
And of course, every time they move, less things they take with them. And
yes,
because, yeah.
Yes, of course. Every time they move, they take this small bag to that tent, to that temporary residence, and it's a real tragedy. It's a real tragedy. Moving to a temporary residence is a real tragedy, as they are forced to go to so-called humanitarian zone. And by the way, the number of people killed in the humanitarian zones larger and bigger than the people killed in the fighting zones. As it's a big lie. Humanitarian zone is a big lie by Israeli occupation forces. They force the people to go there and kill all the family. Some families lost the parents, some families lost the children, some persons lost one hand, for example, one hand. Other people lost 2 hands, other people lost 2 legs. How can you imagine the area of, for example, all Gaza Strip, by the way, all the Gaza Strip, 2 million people. And in the several first weeks of the war, Gaza was shelled by 1,000 tons of explosive bombs. You can imagine how...
It's more than nuclear bomb.
Much more. I think the number of bombs that shelled to Gaza is more than all the wars through history. 1 million bombs, 1 million kilogram of bombs to Gaza, this small area, it's really unimaginable. But all of the Gaza residents chose resilience. But actually, we have limit. We have limit endure. We cannot show more resistance. We want to stop this war. Hope this plan, the ongoing plan, the negotiations being held in Egypt will reach the end of the war, and we want to live in peace like other peoples. We want to stop this killing. We want to see our children go to schools, to education, safety. We want to, for example, we are here in a hospital, Al-Aqsa Hospital. If you take your camera to this hospital, you see a lot of casualties. You see, for example, some children lost their families and living alone here. No one can take care of them.
So, in your view, was this war about releasing Israeli hostages or about genocide and ethnic cleansing?
It's a guise. I believe it's a guise. If you want to release hostages, you can hostage immediately, within only 24 hours. Just start negotiations to get them back. With negotiations, you can take them, and you can stop this. But I think there is another goal for this war. This is another goal, target for another goal for this genocide, is emptying or forcing people to immigrant forcibly, and there is a political ones. We will see later on what these goals be.
Thank you, Nabil. Mohammed, I mean, through your work with the Al-Ata organization, how can you describe the situation of children, for example?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in this program and for your channel. We, as a humanitarian worker working in the field, either local organization or international organization, actually we are suffering after 2 years of the ongoing massacre against the civilian people who are living in 360 square meter only. This crisis have been made and created by human being, not a natural crisis.
A man-made crisis.
Exactly. Yeah. To be more specifically about the children life, through our works, we trying hardly to ease the suffering of this of those children by establishing some temporary learning space, because thousands of people losing their school years for more than
almost a third year now.
Exactly, we are going to have the third year. Most of the schools have been totally destroyed or turned into like a shelters for the IDPs. But the children who are filling the street, trying to help their parents, collecting drinkable water or some wood, or to have some food from the community kitchen, they're losing their hope. They're losing their educational track. Recently, the old statistics shows that the children of Gaza are showing the sign of severe trauma, and they are traumatized because of frequently displacement. They're witnessing a lot of hard memories, which is unerasable.
Actually, multiple traumas. So when you think about it, it's like layers of trauma.
Exactly, which is unbearable. Even for their parents are, for the caregivers, also for the frontliners who are working in the humanitarian work, they are exhausted because they are just normal people facing the same situation, which is unbearable. So, dealing with children who have been facing or traumatized several times with the lack of capacity, lack of the capable people staff, because they are exhausted. The infrastructure has been demolished, moving from where to where forcibly, of course, affecting their future and their mindset even. And as a humanitarian worker, dealing with children one day and the next day hearing that this children has been killed, leave us in a constant fear because of the security issues. And also, we wish that the international community do more pressure on their community and their leaders to stop this war, because we are just the normal people, just like their children, their families. We are not a number. Our children have dreams, They are talented people. They are looking for a bright future. So they must take action immediately and stop this ongoing genocide, because supporting us, it's a responsibility, not a charitable work.
Thank you. Yes, this genocide must stop. Maria, you have a testimony from Gaza resident Nabil Khaldi. We have Mohammed Qattawi from Al-Ata organization, and hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Israeli warplanes continue to pound Gaza, imposing a complete blockade.
It's all about survival now. This is war.
As our police take cover.
No escape. Voices from Rafah on TRT World.
Hello from London once again. And in the past few minutes, the US President Donald Trump has said that he has strong hopes that his 20-point Gaza peace plan will happen. Benjamin Netanyahu has agreed to the proposal, which involves an immediate end to the fighting, a hostage prisoner swap, and the gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. And speaking while he was meeting with Canada's Mark Carney, the US President said that the deal has international support.
And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen.
Well, for more on this, Ryan Bohl joins us live from Philadelphia. He's a senior Middle East and North Africa analyst at RAIN. That's an American risk intelligence company. And here in our London studio, we have Chris Doyle with me. He's a Middle East commentator and also the director of the Council of Arab British Understanding. Chris, welcome to you. I just want to ask a question to you first, Ryan. We heard there from Donald Trump just now in the last hour. What hope do you have for Donald Trump's plan right now? And we know that the indirect Israel and Hamas talks have entered a second day now in Egypt.
The best prognosis for at least a temporary ceasefire since January, but there are still significant obstacles to both implementation and to making this ceasefire truly last, not least of which, of course, is the procedures that the two sides would need to agree on for the release of hostages and prisoners. The Israelis want the hostages released all at once. Hamas is saying logistics makes that difficult. And Hamas is making demands for prisoners that the Israelis don't want to release, including reportedly some of the attackers from October 7th 2 years ago. And unless those initial obstacles can be overcome, we're looking at another drawn-out negotiation process in which fighting will continue in the Gaza Strip.
Question to you, Chris. Your thoughts on this day. Did you expect to see so much death, so much destruction? I don't know, there's not even words anymore. Nearly 2 years on, we have been speaking very often in this studio and remotely. I guess in a nutshell, did you expect to see everything that we're seeing right now 2 years on?
Not at all. It's a day of acute pain, I think, for whoever you are in this conflict, whatever connection you have to it, Israeli or Palestinian. You think of all those lives that have been lost. You think of all the destruction, the trauma, the utter mind-boggling atrocities that have gone on, a genocide in Gaza. It's unfathomable. I thought in the immediate aftermath of the 7th of October attacks, we'd get an Israeli onslaught on Gaza that would have been more severe than the previous wars in 2014, 2012, 2009, and all the other ones. But I didn't think it would go on for 2 years. That said, after about 6 months, I changed that view and came to a view that Netanyahu was going to go all in, and that pretty much what we have seen now is where it was going to land up. I think actually perhaps the biggest surprise to me has been the supine nature of major international actors to go along with this, that we have stood largely idly by and allowed this to happen. European powers who've really done very little when you consider the extraordinary nature of what Israel has visited upon the Gaza Strip. I mean, you've all seen the numbers and the horrors, the drone images. I mean, the destruction of nearly every building in Gaza, over 2,500 places of education have been destroyed. It's unfathomable. And yet, we're almost made to feel grateful if there is a minor sanction that Britain carries out or another country, that this somehow is a sufficient response. It's not. We have been watching a live-streamed genocide in real time. We know what has gone on and we have done precious little about it.
I'll come back to you. Ryan, just that point on your thoughts on this day, and we just heard that from Chris, who said we have stood, well, I assume international leaders, the international community has stood idly by. Is that a view that you share, that is becoming stronger and stronger in the US, would you say?
I would say certainly there's a lot more criticism of Israel that has been developing for many years. Some of it's been generational, and some of it is now political from previous generations that were pro-Israel and are very much opposed to Israel's policies in the Gaza Strip. This is a very slow-moving change, in part because Israel and the United States had a uniquely political and ideological strategic relationship that went back to the 1960s and 1970s, and it takes a lot of time to change attitudes, and especially political attitudes, on such a deep-rooted relationship. And it's important to note that ideological alignment. There's Christian nationalism here in the United States that sees Israel as an important part of its own overarching political and religious project. That's something that's even more difficult to change attitudes on. But we are seeing change, but it's glacial. I think the most surprising thing for me over the course of the past 2 years is the slowness by which the Israelis have carried out this campaign in Gaza in terms of this final step towards occupation. It always seemed to me after the October 7th attack that Israel would resume its occupation of Gaza. It would be a humanitarian disaster. It would result in significant political isolation for Israel. But it didn't seem to me that they had any other options other than to reoccupy Gaza, unless they were going to bring in the Palestinian Authority to run Gaza on their behalf.